Hello there! I'm Reaper, Reaper the Gnome, and welcome to my garden of moss, mold, and fungal stuff. Oh, like you've never seen an undead guy dressed like a gnome before? What, have you been living under a pebble or something? Whatever. Here are some stories inspired by true real-life encounters with gnomes like me.
Canada, 2004. On a drive home from visiting with friends and family, Tim and his wife came across two frantic women who flagged them down. When he pulled the car over, he lowered the window and asked what was wrong and if the women needed help. They told him and his wife that they were attacked while they were driving by 24 tiny little men with floppy hats and long flowing beards. The men all charged at the vehicle, causing the ladies to bring their car to a sudden stop. One of the attackers hopped onto the car and proceeded to jump up and down, smashing his tiny little bodies full force against the hood. The others punched at the car windows and kicked at its doors. One of the women slammed her hand on the car horn several times in hopes that it would scare the attackers away. Luckily, it worked, as the little men stopped and ran back into the woods. The women immediately got out of the car and ran to the side of the road. Several vehicles passed the women by as they cried for help, but Tim and his wife were the only ones to stop. After seeing that the ladies were now safe and sound, Tim went to where they had abandoned their car. He inspected the vehicle. The windows were covered in small cracks, and both doors were peppered with tiny dimples. The hood had the least amount of damage to it, only a tiny impression, so small that it was barely noticeable. Tim looked around and observed the surrounding area. There were plenty of trees and other foliage, but nothing unusual, except for the unexplained movement in the tall grass behind him. Argentina, 2008. After a long day of fishing and hanging out, a group of teenage boys decided it was time to head back to town. Though it was late, the moon was full and shone brightly the way back home. The boys were startled by the sound of rocks being tossed from a nearby field. The grass across the street began to stir, and a shape emerged from behind the tall blades. It appeared to be a very small man wearing a wide-brimmed hat. He waved to the boys and gave a wide smile that showed off blood-stained teeth.
Howdy,
Said the man in a friendly voice. Then he shuffled up the road, saying nothing more and paying not another heed. As soon as the encounter with the small man was over, one of the boys went into shock, sending him to the hospital. Word of the sighting spread quickly, and soon the whole neighborhood was sent into a panic. No one knew who the man was, or what his intentions were, but they still feared him enough to avoid venturing out at night from then on. Australia, 2009. Shortly after returning home from a trip to New Zealand, Kim was finally able to relax. Her children were staying the night at a friend's place, so she had the whole house to herself. She was so exhausted from her travels that she decided it was best for her to go to bed early. Soon after falling asleep, she was awoken by the sound of several funny voices. She was surrounded by a group of at least 6 small people, male and female, each only a few feet tall, and dressed in weird fluffy clothing. The tiny people attempted to pull her out of the bed, tugging on her legs and arms. The woman fought them off as best she could, but more of them appeared, and they too joined in the struggle. She kicked at their faces, punched at their bellies, and bit at their fingers. She went into a frenzy in order to defend herself. The tiny intruders clearly did not come prepared for such a fight. Kim leapt out of the bed, and she backed them all into a single corner of the room. It was either fight or flight, and she chose to fight them with everything she had. She charged at them with full force, only to feel her body impact with the wall. The mysterious beings were no longer there. They had disappeared without a trace. California, 2011. It was late at night, and Mr. and Mrs. Thomas were fast asleep, until they were jolted awake by the sound of loud, obnoxious singing coming from outside.
La 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 la.
They both got out of bed and peered out of their bedroom window into the backyard. There they saw a short little man with a long gray beard and wearing maroon-colored clothing standing next to their pond of koi. The odd-looking fellow reached into the pond and pulled out one of their fish. He dangled it above his open maw in a playful manner, before dropping the poor creature into his mouth and swallowing it whole. Mr. Thomas opened the window and shouted at the man. He looked up at both of them, snickered, and waved his middle finger at them. The Thomases immediately picked up the phone and dialed 911. Unfortunately, no arrests could be made, because the strange little man was gone before the police arrived. The next night, the odd little man returned to the Thomas household and ate another fish. Mr. Thomas opened the window to yell at the man as he had the night before. But before Mr. Thomas could get a word out, the little bearded man ran towards the back door of the house. This scared the Thomases greatly, as they not only had a dog, but they also had a doggy door installed in the rear of their home. Mr. Thomas ran as fast as he could to secure the small opening in the back door. He was just in time to come face to face with the tiny intruder as he pushed his head through the opening. Despite his fear, Mr. Thomas was able to smash the doggy door into the man's face and force it shut. The man kicked and pounded at the door as Mr. Thomas pressed against it with his back. His wife had already called the police, but Mr. Thomas refused to move from that spot even after they arrived. As was the case the night before, the police found no sign of the strange little man. It was only after they had left and the shock had worn off that they began to become very concerned that their dog was nowhere to be found. That's when they heard the tiny scratches at the back door. Mrs. Thomas gasped in fear as her husband slowly crept toward the door. She screamed as the latch burst open, and in ran a creature that pounced right into her husband's lap. They both laughed and cried tears of joy as their beloved animal friend licked his master's face. As they both smothered the dog with affection, Mr. Thomas caught a sight that sent a small shiver through his spine. Stuck in the dog's collar was a piece of maroon-colored denim cloth. It was the same color as the clothes worn by the tiny little man. They didn't stay another night in that house and moved soon after. Argentina, 2011. Benjamin's parents often saw their son talking to himself. They assumed that he had simply conjured up an imaginary friend to play with. They figured that so long as it was something that he would grow out of, it was nothing to worry about. What did worry them was that many of the other children in the neighborhood were starting to go missing. It was also around this time that the family smelled an odd odor coming from inside the home. It was barely noticeable, and they learned to live with it. However, they did grow concerned as the months went by, and Benjamin continued to insist that his friend was indeed real and not a figment of his imagination. The unusual smell did not go away either. In fact, it had only grown in foulness and intensity. Benjamin's parents were desperate to figure out what was going on in and around their home. They decided to set up a camera in hopes that they may capture a video of whomever or whatever had befriended their son. The footage showed Benjamin as he sat on the floor, seemingly talking to himself as he often did. Nothing seemed any more out of the ordinary than what they were already used to with their son. That was, until they saw what appeared to be a skinny humanoid run across the floor and right where their son had been looking. Soon after this, Benjamin revealed to his parents that there was not one, but several of the tiny creatures living in the family's house. The boy continued to play with his gnome-like friends, and though they tried, his mother and father had no luck getting any more of these encounters captured on video. Many years went by and nothing changed. Even the rancid smell remained. Eventually, the odor grew so bad that it made it no longer livable in their home. They had no choice but to move to another house across town to get away from it. It was there that the family was able to begin living a much more normal life, one without the terrible stench, and much to Benjamin's dismay, no gnomes either. A year later, Benjamin's parents were charged with multiple murders, and the boy was put into foster care. Inside the walls, authorities found the remains of several children. Though they were fairly fresh, there was not much left of the bodies, and most had tiny chew marks that were clearly visible in their bones.
Thanks for watching, and remember to keep an eye out for those pesky gnomes. They're like cockroaches, nearly impossible to kill and always multiplying. By the way, you smell Raid? I don't know about you, but I sure do enjoy the smell of insecticide. Ah, yeah, that's the stuff.